Welcome, everyone, to the Founder to Founder series brought to you by One Pitch. We sit down with founders, get them to share with us more about their journey, what and who their company is, where it's headed next, and uncover the truths behind how these entrepreneurs have created success for themselves. Today, we're joined by Oliver Wellington. He's the founder of Headliner, a tool that quite literally makes it easy to create social-friendly videos. He's a second-time founder and has past experience in marketing as well as music. Welcome, Oliver. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Jared.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to chat with you for a few minutes here. So let's get right into it. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about Headliner and what you guys specialize in?
Sure. So Headliner is the main way that podcasters create audiograms and other types of promotional videos to get their podcast out there on social media. If you've ever seen a little clip of a podcast while on Instagram or TikTok or what's the other one? Twitter. Twitter's a big one. But yeah, Instagram's actually the biggest one that we see in terms of sharing. But if you see a little video with captions, a moving waveform, that is often created on Headliner.
Very cool. Yeah. And we're One Pitch as a team. We are users of the Headliner tool. We know how valuable it is for our podcast and how cool it is to be able to just take that audio and put it into something that's a little bit more visual in nature. But I'm curious, what types of customers do you work with? Because I know you mentioned podcasts. Is there anybody else outside of that, or is that kind of the main bread and butter of your user base?
Sure. I mean, the main bread and butter, if you will, is podcasters. It does range like all the way up from like a podcaster that just started their podcast, maybe hasn't even released their first episode yet, will use us, all the way up to large companies doing dozens of podcasts. We also have audiobook companies using it to create little snippets to promote their audiobooks. And also some more there's all these audio storytelling companies that are kind of cropping up, and they'll use us as well. We also have a lot of people using us just to add captions onto video too, which is outside of podcasting in a lot of cases. But yeah, in general, like the main kind of thing people do use it for is taking audio files and then getting them ready for social media.
Very cool. No, I love that. And I love the use cases. Obviously it goes well beyond that, but podcasting is certainly, again, a core group that you guys are working with.
Mm-hmm.
And I know from my bio sheet here, Oliver, that you do have a little bit of a background in music, right?
Yeah. I mean, that was kind of the thing I wanted to do with my life, I guess, in high school and then into college. And I did it until I was about 25. And then I got kind of, what I would say is I kind of figured out that like the lifestyle of a touring musician I wouldn't have lasted long in that lifestyle. So I kind of decided to take a little break from that and got an MBA from Babson, which is an entrepreneurial focused school outside of Boston. I really didn't apply to a lot of places because I really just wanted to do my own thing and always knew I wanted to do my own thing. And so from there, it's just been, everything that's led up to now. A lot of startup related things.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you feel that your experience and your background in music has kind of helped shape some of the things that you guys do at Headliner?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we kind of, when I went from doing music, when I was in my band, I was kind of like I was the bass player and also the, probably the, of the four of us, like the other guys were like a lot better looking. They had a lot better stage presence. They were just like super cool. And I've never been super cool. So like I did a lot of the grunt work, like promoting our band online. There's a site called Pure Volume that existed kind of like, it was around MySpace time as well. That was a big place for bands to go. This is, a while ago, early 2000s. And so I would network to other bands. And my whole strategy for kind of getting our fan base up on our band was to network with other bands that had similar fan bases and kind of just co-promote each other. And that worked really well. And we ended up, getting to, nothing crazy, a couple 100,000. I think it was plays at that point was the big thing that you would look for on like early MySpace or Pure Volume. So we got to a few 100,000 plays and we did a few tours and all that kind of stuff. And so like that kind of process of just finding people that were doing something similar to you and then hooking up with, different fans and giving them the things they need to help you. So kind of finding people that are fans of your music and also have the means to help promote it and also share it with other people, kind of like almost like identifying, I don't know if influencers is the right word. I mean, I don't know what they call it now, but finding
Yeah.
like, influencers, I suppose. But more like, not like online influencers in the today's term, more like finding people that are actually influential in a community. Whether or
Mhm.
not they're sharing online or not is a different thing. But so we kind of took that approach to my co-founder Neil and I. This is our second startup, and so the first startup called Enrelate. We work with bloggers. We kind of made this really great technology to help bloggers circulate their content to their readers. And so we basically just treated the bloggers like they were fans of a band and just gave them what they needed to feel good about working with us, and made them kind of excited about our product and what our company was all about, which is literally just about helping them increase their user base. But the kind of idea similar to music, is if you line up with another band that's doing something similar, I kind of think about that with our initial user base. Like, for us to have a valuable company, we need the bloggers or the podcasters to get value from the product we're making for them. And we're not
Yes.
necessarily going to figure out on our first try what that product is or what the value even is. But over
Mhm.
time, through listening and feedback, that's kind of where we've ended up with our last company and with Headliner too.
Very cool. Very cool. And you're mentioning, over time and listening and kind of taking in that feedback. Is that something I'm assuming early on that kind of, I don't want to say it wasn't part of the roadmap, but it was kind of more so like, okay, let's focus on what we want to do. And then, you begin to realize like, oh, wow, this community, these users, they have something valuable to input and, you know, ideas that we could very much implement on our service.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think so my co-founder Neil is really interesting background. He studied he has 2 master's degrees in technology and was also in the middle of a philosophy PhD.
Oh,
And then he decided to kind of, go get out of academia, which, my brother has a PhD, and
uh-huh.
and he completed it, and it's tough. It's like, and then when you're done, it's still tough. But so he decided to get into doing tech startups, and so he was very interested in, which I thought was so cool, is just there's like our main sources of media out there, but then there's all these interesting people that are doing great content, putting out really great content, especially around niche topics.
Mhm.
But finding it is very difficult. And so both of our companies have been kind of about trying to get technology to a place, and get technology, giving people access to technology that will allow them to get their niche content out there to the world more, so more people can discover and appreciate it.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's kind of like the main I think that's the main interest that actually drives both companies in a lot of ways, is just finding all that awesome content and making sure that it has a chance to survive online and get discovered.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I think the one thing that I take away from that too is you don't need to be technical in order to leverage, right? Headliner, for example, right? It's as easy as you input some files, you can put some information on what you want to display, and you can go, about promoting all that stuff. And I think for me at least, I'm not a technical guy. And so that's
No,
where I
yeah.
have some roadblocks with certain things where I'm like, all right, I don't know how this works, or I don't know how to code. So I actually can't take advantage of this. And I think that's really important, especially for people who are listening, is that Headliner itself, it's a very easy tool to use and something that anybody can kind of pick up and go as long as they have audio.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm like, so at the startup, I'm basically, I'm probably one of the least technical people at our company. And as we've kind of grown, I think a lot of the younger people are generally more technical. Like,
Yeah.
so, and because of that, like, the Headliner even kind of came out of our last company. We were, sorry, before Headliner, we had tried this app, like a social audio app, which, after Clubhouse sounds like, oh, of course. But in 2015, like, that was wild.
Uh-huh.
To even attempt it, it was just like the wrong time. But so, one little feature of the social audio app was this embed creator where you would take a little bit of audio, it'll make a video, or it was actually an embed with an animated waveform, right? And so it would make that, and people were basically asking us, like, can you just make that? Like, can we just upload our pre-existing podcast to that? And so because of that, we were kind of looking around, and at the same time, WNYC in New York radio station had this hackathon where they had made an audiogram generator. And kind of to speak to what you were saying about not being technical, like, I wanted to install it just to try it out, like, but I was on GitHub and like I'd already lost, like I didn't know what to do.
Oh,
So I
gosh.
just had like one of the engineers at our company put it up on some server, and then I just started kind of sharing it with podcasters. And we just wanted to see what happened. And like within a few months, we were getting way more like reaction from people and interest in that, and also usage of that than our mobile app that we had been working on for a couple of years. So we decided to kind of switch over, and then we built Headliner around making this like truly accessible and super easy for anyone to do.
Yeah, no, that's such a cool story. Well, I shouldn't say I love. Sometimes it sucks when you do those sort of things, when you put all your time and attention into something and you got this little thing on the side that, you don't expect to necessarily take off. And then all of a sudden that's the thing that people want. But I think that's also the beautiful part about entrepreneurship at the end
Well,
of
I
the
mean,
day.
it's all like, I mean, I just love that someone liked something we did.
Yeah.
Because like the alternative is that like no one used anything, which is often very the case for a lot of things, like, I mean, we have like the projects we've done that have gone somewhere, the ones we talk about, which is like Enrelate, which is our previous company, and Headliner. But there's a lot of other things that we launched that didn't quite get right. It didn't quite hit the market correctly, and you just kind of remember the ones that succeed and
Yeah,
forget about all the others. But I liked I mean, everything we've worked. It's been fun. It's just seeing if something works is the whole process is fun. For sure.
Yeah. And very rewarding too. Once again, you see
Mm-hmm.
the reaction, or, in your case, how many people are using it. We can very much, again, relate to the stuff we do here at One Pitch. So what's next for you guys? Are you guys building anything new, working on anything exciting?
Yeah, definitely. So we have a bunch of stuff going on. So I think the main thing I'd like to talk about a little is our recommendation widget it's called Disco, short for Discovery, and it's a little bit of code that goes on a blog page or a publisher's website, and it actually matches up content from their page, from that article that this widget's on. It'll match that up with clips from their podcast, so they can basically take their podcast clips and get them in front of their web readers. And so I think like this works, for podcasters that already have that are mostly known through their podcast and their website isn't as big of a deal and isn't their main focus. It's kind of a nice way to just surface your back catalog. But for a lot of the kind of more traditional media companies, or even any blog really, that their audience was first on their written content and then they add their podcast afterwards, they'll generally have a much larger audience on their written content. So this is a way to make sure that their audio content is getting in front of their readers too, at the right time when they're consuming that similar content. And so, we're live on about a dozen sites right now, and so far all the tests have been really great. So there's that. Another thing we're doing now is also within that widget, we're allowing people to pay to promote their podcast within it. So you could basically pay to have your podcast clips show up on external sites. And so that's kind of something we're testing, and it plays audio directly from the podcaster's feed, so it shows up as a listen on their reporting. And it's just kind of another way to help audio get discovered, because audio really isn't made. Audio and the internet don't really. What's the right way of saying it? I say like the internet isn't really made for audio content in the way that most people consume it. It's all visual. It's text and images and photos, images, photos, and video. So we're trying to help audio kind of get out there. And I think this widget is honestly going to do a lot to help get all the people that don't listen to podcasts exposed to them, because we're still in a place where, most people don't listen to podcasts.
Which is mind blowing, considering the amount of podcasts that are out there and knowing how that space has grown. It's like, how are people not listening to these by this point in time?
Yeah, totally.
Very much. Well, Oliver, I think that was a great way to kind of wrap things up today. But I wanted to thank you for joining us. And for those that are listening, again, this is Oliver Wellington. He's the founder at Headliner. You can head to their website at headliner.app. And I'll pull that up in the bottom here so you can take a quick look. And keep an eye out, again, for their new feature called Disco, where you can help other listeners discover past podcast episodes on your page there. So thanks again, Oliver. Appreciate you joining us.
Thanks.